he holds judgment. How long will you judge unjustly and show partiality to the wicked? Give justice to the weak and the fatherless. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hand of the wicked. They have neither knowledge nor understanding. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are shaken. I said, you are gods, sons of the Most High. All of you, nevertheless, like men, you shall die and fall like any prince. Arise, O God, judge the earth, for you shall inherit all the nations. So what God is talking about here, he's in the midst of the sons of God, which are angels, and he set them over nations. We actually see one of these guys. Good, okay, thank you. We actually see one of these guys in Daniel chapter 10. The angel is coming to Daniel. He's been held back, and he tells Daniel, I'm sorry, I got held up with the prince of Persia, and he was too powerful for me, so Michael had to come and help me out. What this angel is saying is he was fighting with another angel, a fallen angel. So the question here is, what were they doing? Why did they come down and take women? So let's turn to Numbers chapter 13. Let's look and see who these were. The word we're looking for here specifically is the Nephilim. And we'll discuss what that means here in a second. Numbers chapter 13. These are the spies that Moses sent out. They've come back. They're giving him a report. It says, but the men who had gone with him said, we can't attack those people. They're too strong for us. So they began to spread lies among the Israelites about the land they had explored. They said, the land we expected is one that devours those who live there. All the people we saw there are very tall. We saw Nephilim there. The descendants of Anak are not Nephilim. We felt as small as grasshoppers, and that's how we must have looked to them. So the Nephilim are giants. You can look at Deuteronomy chapter 20. It's also on that slide. It says, it is also counted as a land of Rephaim. This is another name for giants. That name actually means terrible ones. Rephaim formerly lived there, but the Ammonites called them Zamzummim, a people great and many and tall as the Anakim, but the Lord destroyed them before the Ammonites, and they dispossessed them and settled in their place. Okay, so let's read in Amos. Yet it was I who destroyed the Amorite before them, whose height was like the height of cedars, and he was as strong as the oaks. Yet I destroyed his fruit and his roots beneath. In other words, God's saying, I destroyed him and I killed all of his relatives. Also, it was I who brought you up from the land of Egypt and led you 40 years through the wilderness to possess the land of Amorite. Okay, so notice that both in Amos and Deuteronomy, it's God destroying these people. Why? Because they weren't fully human. Okay, let's look at Deuteronomy chapter 3. For only Og, king of Bashan, remained of the remnant of the giants. Get Rephaim in brackets there. Indeed, his bedstand was an iron bedstand. Is it not in Rabbah of the people of Ammon? 9 cubits is its length, and 4 cubits is its width, according to the standard cubit. And that's Deuteronomy chapter 3. Now, what that's saying is that this King Og is around 13 feet tall. Now, it's kind of hard to imagine. So, if you've ever seen Shaquille O'Neal, have you ever seen anyone like him in real life? Stood beside him or stood close enough to him to see how big he was? Now put a 6-foot tall man on top of him. That's how tall we're talking. For 2 Samuel, yet again there was war at Gath, where there was a man of great stature, who had 6 fingers on each hand and 6 toes on each foot, 24 in number, and he also was born to the giant. 2 Peter 2:4. Again, this is going back to the angels and Genesis 6. It says, "For if God did not spare the angels who sinned, but cast them down to hell and delivered them into chains of darkness to be reserved for judgment." Okay, so what was their sin? So let's now look at Jude. Jude chapter 1, verse 6. It says, "And the angels who did not keep their proper domain, but left their own abode, he has reserved in everlasting chains under darkness for the judgment of the great day, as Sodom and Gomorrah and the cities around them in a similar manner to these, having given themselves over to sexual immorality and gone after strange flesh, are set forth as an example, suffering the vengeance of eternal fire." Okay, so let's look at that phrase, proper domain. That is the Hebrew word arche, and it actually means the principality of angels. It's the place that God set up for angels. Okay, so looking at the word I highlighted, abode, that is a Greek word, and that is oikaterion, and it's only found in one other place in the Bible. So let's look there and see how it's used. In 2 Corinthians 5:2, it says, For in this we groan, earnestly desiring to be clothed with our habitation, which is from heaven." So this is Paul saying he desires his heavenly body, not this flesh that we have. So in Jude chapter 1, verse 6, the angels shed their heavenly body and put on flesh. And I know it sounds weird, but it happened. Okay, so the word Nephilim that we see in Genesis is a Hebrew word, and it means the fallen or fallen ones. The actual word is Nephil, and the I am in Hebrew is plural. Okay, this word had in the Chaldean language. The Chaldean language is the ancient Babylonian language, and the Chaldean language, the word was shaitan. The Greeks took this word and made it their own, and they created the word Titan. And if you guys know your Greek mythology, the Titans were huge, big giants. They were the parents of the Greek mythological gods. In Hebrew, they also took this word Titan, and it became Satan. The Rephaim, again, we talked about another word for giants, means terrible ones. Genesis chapter 6, 9, looking at that, it says, "This is the genealogy of Noah. Noah was a just man, perfect in his generations. Noah walked with God, and Noah begot 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth." Now, this is a very interesting verse because we find out not only is he's a righteous man, because that's what it says here at the beginning. He also walked with God, but it says he was perfect in his generations. That verse in some of your Bibles may say blameless. The Hebrew word here is the word tamim, and it's very interesting. It's the same word used to describe the red heifer that is sacrificed and turned into ashes to prepare the temple that Solomon built. And it means, when you translate it, without blemish, intact, or unaltered. So what this is saying here is not only was Noah a righteous man, it's not saying he wasn't sinning. It's saying that his genetics were perfect. He didn't have any manipulation going on. Okay, so let's look at, we go forward in time, Tower of Babel. And when we go to that story, you'll see in that story in Genesis that Nimrod is said to have become a giant upon the earth. Now, some people believe he was just a tyrannical person. There are others that believe he was a Nephilim. God said that the Nephilim were present before the flood and right afterward. So this is very interesting information. Gilgamesh is a flood story from ancient Sumeria, and the hero is Gilgamesh. He is not a very nice person at all. If you read the story, does not fully equate to the flood story in the Bible, and he is actually trying to kill gods. He's actually trying to place his throne above God's. Biblical archaeologists believe that Gilgamesh and Nimrod are the same person. This is a statue of Gilgamesh that you're seeing here. A lot of people believe that the lion that he's holding is just a symbol of his kingsmanship, but what if he was gigantic? That would be accurate. Something else that's interesting, and this is something I found accidentally, is that right after we invaded Iraq in 2003, this was just a month after we invaded. A German archaeologist was called by the U.S. military, and the reason was because they believed that they found an ancient tomb. The archaeologists believed that it was the tomb of Gilgamesh. He was only there for a short period, and then the American military, right before he could enter the tomb, said, "Okay, you're done. Get out of here." And that's it. We have no idea what happened from there. It sounds like a movie, but it's interesting information. So, what were the Nephilim? As you can see, that's a rendering there of David and Goliath. Goliath was a Nephilim. You can't see that there, but the artist looks like he put 6 fingers on his hand, which we read from the Bible. On the right-hand side is a carving, an ancient carving of a Nephilim fighting soldiers. It looks like they're not doing too well against him. In 1 Samuel chapter 17, verse 15, David slays Goliath. It says, "Therefore David ran and stood over the Philistine, took his sword and drew it out of its sheath and killed him and cut off his head with it." Now, after that, in verse 54, it says, "And David, taking the head of the Philistine, brought it to Jerusalem. But his armor he put in his tent." Why? Well, David knew the scriptures really well. David wasn't just a prophet, and wasn't just a king. He was a prophet, and he was also high priest. He saw prophecy. He wrote Psalm 22, which describes Christ's crucifixion. Now, if you know your history, your Bible history, Jerusalem didn't even belong to Israel at that time. It wouldn't belong to Israel until David became king more than 20 years later and conquered it. But he took the head that he cut off of Goliath to Jerusalem. Why? Many people believe he buried the head in Jerusalem, and the reason for that is because he's calling back to Genesis chapter 3, verse 15 we read earlier, where God is telling Satan that he'll crush his head, and all Satan can do is bruise the Messiah's heel. So something we should talk about real quick is kinds. In the ark story, Noah is told to take 2 of every kind of animal, and not 2 of every animal on the planet, 2 of every kind. It's a scientific term. If you have donkeys, zebras, and horses, those are all the same kind. Noah only had to take 2, male and a female, of one of those breeds. Same thing for dogs, jackals, wolves, all the same. They can interbreed with each other. And we see this in nature, and as you see before, you have 2 examples of hybrids. On the left, we have a mule. On the right, we've got a liger. So on the left, the mule's parents are a donkey and a horse. On the right, the liger's parents are a lion and a tiger. What's interesting about these animals is that Both of them are, both the liger and the mule are much greater in size than either of their parents. And they have a much greater muscle mass than either of them as well. So it makes sense. So it seems like angels and humans share some genetics, enough to where we can have offspring. So bones of giants are actually found in many places across the planet. And one of the places that they find them quite often is Sardinia in Italy. It's a little island off of Italy. It's oftentimes that someone's digging in their yard, they find this big bone. They call someone to figure out what it is. Authorities, the university shows up, and this story happens over and over again. The bone's taken away. Oh, we'll let you know what we find out about it. They call to check up on it. What bone? What bone are you talking about? We also see this here in our country. This is the Huffington Post that's actually reporting on different times giant bones were found in the United States. The most famous of those is the 18 skeletons that were found in 1912 in Wisconsin. And in those, I don't know if you've seen, they have these burial mounds that are up north, and I think they even go into Tennessee. They found 18 of the skeletons. The Smithsonian got a hold of them and then claimed they never got them. So people all over the planet, specifically older groups of people, have stories that involve giants, including American Indians. They were terrified of them. They described them as having 6 fingers, which is interesting. These are people that hadn't read the Bible. So that is a headline from a current, and it is not a tabloid. It says Pentagon declassifies 1,500 pages of UFO reports. Claim UFO encounters cause nervous system damage and unaccounted for pregnancies. Now, that may look really funny, but you need to understand that angels can manifest, fallen angels, demons can manifest themselves in ways that will deceive people. And we'll talk more a little bit about this in another teaching, but even Satan is said to manifest himself to people as an angel of light. And I'll tell you, I've read the Quran. If you've ever read the Quran before, that's how the supposed angel manifested himself to Muhammad. So do we see DNA manipulation happening today? And I'm not saying we're going to see giants again. What we're looking at is, do we see DNA manipulation of human beings today? So if you're familiar with 23andMe, they are, if you're not familiar with them, they're a service that you send in your DNA. Ancestry is the same way. And they take your DNA and they tell you what your background is. What they're not telling you is that they're actually using your DNA. They're using your DNA for research. So here, this one, your DNA can contribute to COVID-19 research. Early research from 23andMe strengthens link between blood types and COVID-19. 23andMe sees genetic, non-genetic contributors to COVID-19 risk in trans ancestral study. They also seem to be lying to certain people. And I'm not saying this happens with every one of them, but here's a story of a guy who had a pet lizard. He swabbed the lizard's mouth, sent it in to 23andMe, and he found out his lizard was Ashkenazi Jewish. I bet he was shocked about that. So, one thing we're going to get into when we look at economics is these companies are owned by much larger corporations, and when we get to economics, you're going to understand there's not a lot of corporations that are autonomous. There's only a few owners in the world. So GSK is GlaxoSmithKline. It says here GSK and 23andMe sign an agreement to leverage genetic insights for the development of novel medicines. Wall Street Journal, how drug companies are using your DNA to make new medicine. So Pfizer announces closing of joint venture with GlaxoSmithKline to create premier global consumer healthcare company. So GSK, GlaxoSmithKline, Pfizer are the same company. Okay, Chinese biological laboratory in Wuhan is owned by GlaxoSmithKline, who owns Pfizer and produces the COVID-19 vaccine. Now, if you go online and you type that in, you're going to get fact checkers, especially if you're on Facebook. The biggest of your fact checkers, especially Facebook, they use them solely, is Reuters. This is a LinkedIn. I wanted to show you this because when you go on search, I want you to understand what you're seeing. This is a frame from LinkedIn. This is Jim Smith. He is the founder, or not founder. He was the board member and CEO of Reuters. And he's the chairman, he's also a board member of Pfizer. So I'm sure there's no conflict of interest there. For quite a while, me and people like me had said, why do you need to stick a stick almost to your brain to find out if you have COVID when you ask me to cover my mouth because it's so dangerous you have to cover your mouth? Why can't you just swab the inside of your cheek? So people like me had said, there maybe a little more to this. Why are they doing that? CDC comes out and admits that they were taking those samples and storing them. So people that went and had that swab done, they were storing their DNA. So before I get to this next slide, I want to pre-qualify it because it is a slide about the COVID vaccine. I want everyone here to understand that this is not judgment on anyone who took the vaccine. It's actually not about you taking the vaccine. It's what they're going to do with it going forward. Okay, so understand that. The M and mRNA, if you aren't familiar, means messenger. It's actually better described as instructions. It's giving a set of instructions to the DNA in your cell. They can also put with the RNA a carrier, and you'll see that when we talk about CRISPR. Okay, so the next slide here, is Pfizer mRNA goes into the liver and changes into DNA, Swedish study says. Okay, so these next couple of slides you're going to understand why I put this here. Okay, edible vaccines. Scientists studying potential of leafy greens as homegrown mRNA factories. I've read numerous stories on this. They said that they're going to put this in our fruits and vegetables, put it in the stores, and you won't know. When you go to the store to buy your fruits and vegetables, it'll be in there, you'll have no idea. Just this year, you can go look this up, they changed the way they qualify fruits and vegetables for organic. What was organic last year or the year before? Not anymore. What was not organic last year or the year before is organic now because of the way they qualify it. And you have to ask, why do they want that? Why are they wanting this in our body? Again, they can give instructions to your cell. They can give it all kinds of instructions. What do they plan on doing with it? They're going to use the universal flu vaccine. They're going to make that mRNA as well. They have developed genetically modified mosquitoes, and they're going to release them in Florida Keys. And when they bite you, they'll inject whatever it is they put in the mosquitoes. Human genetic engineering is coming. We must discuss the social and political implications now. They have developed a process to where they can develop a 3-parent child. They can take genetic information from one man and put it in the sperm of another man, and it creates a 3-person child. So that brings up CRISPR. A minute ago, I told you that they can use mRNA for instructions, but they can also use it to carry something. And this is it. CRISPR is a technology that can be used to edit DNA. And it says here that these gene edits will likely change the world. So think of a strand of film. Okay, most everything's digital nowadays, but think of a strand of film, and you don't want these frames in here, so you cut those frames out and you put the film back together. That's what this does. Or it snips and then inserts another portion of genetic material. Okay, I circled over here on the right-hand side, first attempt to get CRISPR gene editing working in sperm. In other words, they'll get it from conception. And so let's watch this video on CRISPR real quick. Is it working? There we go.
The CRISPR-Cas9 system is a tool for cutting DNA at a specifically targeted location. The technique has already revolutionized gene editing, but scientists are always looking for new possibilities. So what else can CRISPR do? Since being discovered in a bacterial immune system, CRISPR-Cas9 has been adapted into a powerful tool for genomic research. There are 2 components to the system: a DNA cutting protein called Cas9 and an RNA molecule known as the guide RNA. Bound together, they form a complex that can identify and cut specific sections of DNA. First, Cas9 has to locate and bind to a common sequence in the genome called a PAM. Once the PAM is bound, the guide RNA unwinds part of the double helix. The RNA strand is designed to match and bind a particular sequence in the DNA. Once it's found the correct sequence, Cas9 can cut the DNA. Its 2 nuclease domains each make a nick, leading to a double-strand break. Although the cell will try to repair this break, the fixing process is error-prone and often inadvertently introduces mutations that disable the gene. This makes CRISPR a great tool for knocking out specific genes. But making double-strand breaks isn't all CRISPR can do. Some researchers are deactivating one or both of Cas9's cutting domains and fusing new enzymes onto the protein. Cas9 can then be used to transport those enzymes to a specific DNA sequence. In one example, Cas9 is fused to an enzyme, a deaminase, which mutates specific DNA bases, eventually replacing cytidine with thymidine. This kind of precise gene editing means you can turn a disease-causing mutation into a healthy version of the gene, or introduce a stop codon at a specific place.
Yeah, I think you guys get the picture. So it can change your DNA. It can add things, it can subtract things, it changes it. So, can we get back to the slides? Okay, there we go. And so, scientists use CRISPR inside an adult patient's body for the first time. So originally they were looking at doing it with newborns, and now they've discovered they can do it with adults. So why is this important? What does it matter? They'll try to tell you that, we're going to be solving all kinds of things. This is for good. We're doing great things with this. What does it matter that they're messing with our DNA? No? Did you know that every person's DNA on the planet actually has God's name on it? Every single one. The Hebrew language, the Hebrew letters aren't just letters, they're also read as numbers. On every person on the planet, God's name is on our DNA. Yahweh. He actually signed his name. So we're going to look at Daniel chapter 2 here when we get to world government, but I wanted to go ahead and look at a part of it now. So just to give you a background, in Daniel chapter 2, the King Nebuchadnezzar's had a dream. It's a statue, multiple medals on the statue. He doesn't know what to make of it. No one can tell him. Daniel finally tells him what it means. He says that the statue is different kingdoms or different empires, and it's gold, silver, brass, legs of iron, and then feet of iron and clay. So those metals not only start off highly valuable and degrade in value over time, they also start off soft and go to much stronger. Now the feet are iron and clay. All of the metals on that statue had meaning in those empires, but they were also used to make idols and false gods. So the feet of iron and clay is the last empire. And if you read Daniel chapter 2, a rock, which is Jesus, destroys the statue, and Jesus that's his second coming. It destroys all the empires. I've wondered recently, what would iron and clay, if all the other metals were used to make false idols or things within an empire, do we have anything today that contains both iron and clay? And what is it? It didn't take too long for me to figure out what it was when I went to Google. It's your cell phone. Actually, more specifically, microchips. Microchips contain both iron and clay. So why is that important? Well, let's look at this. Let's look at Revelation. Revelation chapter 13, verse 16. It says, "And the second beast required all people small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on their right hand or on their forehead, so that they could not buy or sell unless they had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name." Okay, so in the King James Version, it says in the right hand or in the forehead. People often debate which one is it. Is it in or on? I'm of the opinion it's both. It's a physical mark, and it's something that's actually going to be biological in your body. And here's the reason why. Fast forward to Revelation chapter 16, verse 2 says, "So the first angel went and poured out his bowl on the earth, and harmful and painful sores came upon the people who bore the mark of the beast and worshipped his image." Now, what's happening here is that these people took the mark, and they're having a biological change. Okay, once you receive the mark in the Bible, it's clear you cannot be saved. Is it possible because they're not actually human anymore? Whatever this biological change took away their humanity? Chapter 9, verse 3. It says, "Then out of the smoke locusts came upon the earth, and to them was given power, as the scorpions of the earth have power. They were commanded not to harm the grass of the earth or any green things or any tree, but only those men who do not have the seal of God on their foreheads. And they were not given authority to kill them, but to torment them for 5 months. Their torment was like the torment of a scorpion when it strikes a man. And those days men will seek death." Listen to this. "They will seek death and will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them." What this is saying is that people at this point will actually try to kill themselves, but they won't be able to. And that sounds crazy, but the technology is actually here for that. And I'll show you that in a second. Revelation chapter 19. "Then I saw the beast and the kings of the earth and their armies gathered together to wage war against the rider on the horse and his army." Who's the rider on the horse and his army? That's Jesus and the armies of heaven. These people think they can take on Jesus when he returns. Why? Because because when they received the mark, they had a biological change. Now, again, this is my opinion, so you guys take it as it is. The person who says to take the mark is the false prophet. I believe that whenever he says to do this, he's saying, take the mark, become like God. He's not talking about our God. He's talking about the Antichrist who just announced he was God. This is the original lie back in the garden, and it is put upon everyone who takes this mark. Now, they think they are now gods, and when Jesus returns, that's why they are delusional to think that they can take him on. So, we have billionaires right now spending billions of dollars trying to figure out how to live forever. These are people trying to escape judgment. They know what's coming when they die. They don't want to deal with it. They want to escape it. Silicon Valley's quest to live forever could benefit humanity as a whole, and here's why. These tech billionaires are determined to buy their way out of death. Why? Because they know judgment's coming for them when they die. Nanobots that can be injected to make our bodies smarter and heal faster. Remember what we just talked about, part of Revelation. Let's watch this quick video on nanobots.
November 17th, 2015. A team of researchers from North Carolina State University and Rice University unveiled the first motor-driven submersible nanomachines ever created.
Molecular nanotechnology is the idea of building devices, machines, at a molecular scale. Nano refers to a billionth of a meter, so very, very small. We're getting down to atomic scale.
Measuring only 244 atoms across, these miniature robots are designed to deliver specialized medicines throughout the body using the bloodstream.
Scientists have created biobots that are the first of its kind. These tiny little biohybrid swimming bots are capable of traveling to viscous material through our bodies.
They take submersible nanomachines that can be controlled with UV light, and using the UV light, they can control where these nanomachines take nutrients and take medicines into the body.
As long as we have a way of controlling them from the outside, they can move around very, very quickly, perform a function. If we're looking at operating on a cancer, then potentially they could do that operation for you from within.
This could lead to huge advances in medicine, in healing, leading to nanomachines that could actually heal the wounds in our bodies, close things up much faster, repair damaged tissue, extend our lifespan, and literally bring us into a new level of human evolution.
And that's good, right there. That's good.
Transhumanists believe our bodies will soon be home to swarms of nanomachines.
So we're going to be talking about transhumanism here in a second. Did you hear what it said? It can close up wounds. It can extend our life. Again, looking back at Noah's day, it's starting to look like that we're dealing with technology that could lead back to there. Okay. Nanobot implants could give us godlike intelligence, but machines won't overtake us until they learn to love. That's kind of strange. AI nanobots implanted into body may give rise to superhumans within 20 years. This was in 2017, and that was written. This one was written in 2012. It says, scientist says immortality only 20 years away. And he's highlighted here, it says nanotechnology will let us live forever. And again, I'll go back to the verse in Revelation. In those days men will seek death, and they will not find it. They will desire to die, and death will flee from them. No death and an enhanced life is the future. Is this the future of transhumanism? So transhumanism is people that believe you can change genetics and add it and fuse human beings with technology. It says superintelligence and eternal life. Transhumanism's faithful follow it blindly into a future for the elite. It's a religion. This has become a religion. And they have a high priest. I'm going to show you him in a second. The dream of transhumanism, are we merely human or are we something more? This below it says humans are already so integrated with technology that the dream of transhumanism is a reality. Can we handle what comes next? So, this is Klaus Schwab. Klaus Schwab is the head of the World Economic Forum. He has written a book called The Fourth Industrial Revolution. Most of everything that's happening in the West right now, you're seeing our country doing really weird, bad things. You're seeing most of the West doing the same thing. It's all because they're all coordinating. And this guy is one of the guys that's helping to coordinate that. He says, what the Fourth Industrial Revolution will lead to is a fusion of our physical and digital and our biological identities. Let's watch this on transhumanism real quick. This is from the BBC.
The A to Z of isms, transhumanism. Most of us would consider the end of the human race as a catastrophe. There are some, however, who will not only rejoice at it, but want to hasten the day it arrives. Transhumanists look forward to a future in which Homo sapiens is superseded by a better, smarter, fitter model, humanity 2.0. Humans are in dire need of improvement. Any species that causes huge damage to our environment, can't feed itself even though it has enough food, and fights countless wars costing millions of lives must surely benefit from an intelligence upgrade. Our lifespans are short, our final years usually characterized by diminishing health and vitality, often accompanied by a drop-off in cognitive capacity. 1 in 3 people born in 2015 are expected to get dementia. Is this really the best we can hope for? Transhumanists think not. Aging could be stopped and even reversed. Enhancements could dramatically raise our IQs and make us stronger and fitter. We might even be able to leave our fragile bodies behind and upload ourselves to computers, living forever in virtual worlds. Improving humanity through science and technology could radically change us. Such a new beginning would in effect be the end of humanity as we know it. Many transhumanists see this as not only desirable, but inevitable. The scientist and futurist Ray Kurzweil believes we are approaching what he calls the singularity, the point at which computers become smart enough to learn for themselves, after which they will rapidly become smarter and smarter. The future belongs to artificial intelligence. The only way for humanity to survive is to embrace it and become wholly or partially artificial ourselves. The thought of being replaced by a new form of humanity is bound to be unsettling. But transhumanists think we would be wrong to lament the end of humanity as we know it, when what replaces us would be so much better. It would be like wishing children never grew up, or that Homo erectus never evolved into Homo sapiens. If the transhumanists are right, we could be one of the last generations of humans to roam the planet.
So, doesn't that sound great? So back to the slides. And so let me introduce you to their high priest, is a man by the name of Yuval Noah Harari. And he is Klaus Schwab's right-hand man at the World Economic Forum. He says, I'll show you a video with that when he says this, so I'm going to skip that. He's written several books. The latest book is called Homo Deus, basically means man-God. or all man's God. He states in here, the book overview states, turning his focus toward humanity's future and our quest to upgrade humans into gods. That's taking us right back to the Tower of Babel. That's what they want to do. So Harari ponders how world will deal with useless people. He was asked this question, how all these people were going to be replaced by machines. Well, how are you going to deal with them? He paused for quite a bit, and then he finally said, we're going to give them drugs and video games. What he really wanted to say was, we're going to kill them. And how do I know that? Well, because they put that they engraved that into granite and put it up as a statue. And I'll show you that in a few weeks. So in a video, he states technology will be used to produce eternal life on earth without the help of some god. He also says very soon we will be beyond the God of the Bible. And he also states we don't need to wait for Jesus Christ for eternal life. Now, background on him. He is homosexual. He's a professor. He is an Israeli Jew. And he's an atheist, obviously. But he spends a lot of time talking about God for an atheist. This was his first book that got him noticed. It's called Sapiens. It was recommended by Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, and Barack Obama. So I'm out. It says, history is neither good nor bad. I have a degree in history. History is neither good nor bad, and its twists and turns are largely irrelevant to our subjective happiness. So I'm pretty sure Jews living during the Holocaust thought that was bad, but he says it's neither good nor bad. In the future, Homo sapiens will transcend biological limits, eventually replacing itself with an entire new species. So let's watch the video on him real quick.
We are probably one of the last generations of Homo sapiens, because in the coming generations, we will learn how to engineer bodies and brains and minds. Now, how exactly
who's the person look like on the screen?
Future masters of the planet look like? This will be decided by the people who own the data. Now, why is data so important? It's important because we've reached the point when we can hack not just computers, we can hack human beings and other organisms. Now, what do you need in order to hack a human being? You need two things. You need a lot of computing power, and you need a lot of data, especially biometric data. But control of data might enable human elites to do something even more radical than just build digital dictatorships. By hacking organisms, elites may gain the power to re-engineer the future of life itself. Because once you can hack something, you can usually also engineer it. All of life, for 4 billion years, dinosaurs, amoebas, tomatoes, humans, all of life was subject to the laws of natural selection and to the laws of organic biochemistry. But this is now about to change. Science is replacing evolution by natural selection with evolution by intelligent design. Not the intelligent design of some god above the clouds, but our intelligent design and the intelligent design of our clouds. The IBM cloud, the Microsoft cloud, these are the new driving forces of evolution. And at the same time, science may enable life, after being confined for 4 billion years to the limited realm of organic compounds, science may enable life to break out into the inorganic realm. Humans are now hackable animals. You know, the whole idea that humans have, they have this soul or spirit and they have free will and nobody knows what's happening inside me, so whatever I choose, whether in the election or whether in the supermarket, this is my free will, that's over. free will, that's over.
That's all.
Over. Today, we have the technology to hack human beings on a massive scale. Yeah, I mean, everything is being digitalized, everything is being monitored. In this time of crisis, you have to follow science. It's often said that you should never allow a good crisis to go to waste, because a crisis is an opportunity to also do good reforms that in normal times people will never agree to. But in a crisis, you see we have no chance, so let's do it.
Vaccine won't help us go
the
to the
vaccine
test, of course.
will help us, of course. It will make things, more manageable.
Surveillance, people could look back in 100 years and identify the coronavirus epidemic as the moment when a new regime of surveillance took over, especially surveillance under the skin, which I think is maybe the most important development of the 21st century, is this ability to hack human beings, to go under the skin, collect biometric data, analyze it, and understand people better than they understand themselves.
That's probably
I believe, is maybe the most important.
And what he's saying is that they were using COVID passports and that there were talks of chipping people. That happened in certain places, not all over the place. So that's what he's talking about. So his boss that I showed you earlier, Klaus Schwab, who's the head of the World Economic Forum, he referred to human beings recently as no different than a box or a container of boxes being shipped. What he meant by that is nowadays those are trackable. They have RFID chips on them, and you can trace where they're at. He's saying that you and I don't mean anything. We're simply cattle, or he's actually saying we're slaves, that government owns us. So going back to the flood, Satan and his angels were what they were doing there is they were trying to prevent the Messiah from being born. Again, Satan is delusional. What is all this about? What is the purpose of basically manipulating human beings to the point where they're not human anymore? Well, I believe that we find that answer in Romans 11, chapter 25. It says, "For I do not desire, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise to your own opinion, that blindness in part has happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles has come in. And so all Israel will be saved, as it is written, the deliverer will come out of Zion, and he will turn away ungodliness from Jacob. For this is my covenant with them when I take away their sins." So I personally believe, again, my opinion, that Satan is trying to prevent the fullness of the Gentiles from coming in. There is a finite number of Gentiles that will go into the kingdom. Satan may know this number. He's trying to prevent it from happening. And it's not going to work. We're going to end up with a tribulation, and we'll get to what happens with that later on. So after everything we've seen tonight, and I'm sorry we missed the first few slides on violence, but I'm guessing pretty much most people here know that violence is getting worse. I mean, I'll go back to this slide here in a second, but only evil thoughts by men, no thoughts of God. Again, do you know many people that have thoughts of God? Not a lot of people I know that actually have thoughts of God all the time. Most people I know at work, around me, they don't think about God at all. We have family members that don't think about God at all. They think we're crazy for what we believe. Violence is increasing. You guys have seen the riots that were happening a couple years ago. Don't be surprised if they happen again. As I've shown you, they're trying to tamper with God's DNA. And they're trying to create human beings. They're trying to engineer human beings that can live for thousands of years. For 1,000 years. So that's all we have for this study. Next week we're going to look at the days of Lot. Okay? So again, we actually went over Luke chapter 17 Start in verse 26 and read through verse 29. Or actually, verse 30. So, any questions? Yeah. Luke 17, 26 through 30. Any other questions tonight? And if you guys have questions, even if it's about one of our past Sundays, you guys can come and ask me after we're done. You don't. I mean, if you don't want to ask in front of everybody, that's fine. Come and ask me. We'll talk about it, just the two of us. All right. So let's go ahead and close out in prayer. All right. Lord, thank you again for this evening. Thank you for your word, Lord. There's a lot going on in our world. We thank you for the fact that we've got this church that we can come and worship you. We're thankful that our country still, this country and especially our state still allows us to worship you freely. And thank you for your prophetic word and the fact that we know in the end, Lord, you win, and that which means we win. In your name, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Thanks, everybody.